All right, so it is the off season for all but 4 teams, and the Avalanche are not one of those 4 teams. So what do? We take your questions. It is a listener question day here at Locked On Avalanche. Let's get to it.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom. Kyle Sullivan, thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you're subscribed to our subtext link that's in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very show, and we get your questions, which we will share on this very show pretty much throughout. Because where we were going to start today is a question that several people brought up. And we've been talking about, the pretty much the forwards and defense and where that's going to lead this offseason a little bit and into next year. But the one guy that we've really kind of been ignoring since the season ended is Alexandar Georgiev and the goalie position. So I figured let's start there. Because like I said, you had a lot of people asking our opinions on, do we feel like he redeemed himself for how he played in the postseason? There are other people feeling like, should we trade him and bring in somebody new? It's kind of all over the place right now. And I kind of wanted to get your take because you've been critical of him. I've been critical of him for this season. A lot of people have. And a lot of people have, he has his supporters too. So it's no secret. It was an up and down season for him, but it ended well. So is that where, it's the last impression is what you're holding on to going into next year? Or are you kind of maybe not on that side of things? Where do you stand with this?
Well, for the everydayers, let's all get our DeLoreans, crank that thing to 88 and go back to the future here. And when we did our midseason grades, a good chunk of our grades were like 60% of them. We gave a soft grade, but then it's let's see how the rest of the season plays out. And with Georgiev, I'm pretty sure it was the same. Let's just see how the rest of the season plays out. And the way the season ended, atrocious. The Winnipeg series, game 1, iffy at best. And then it was
the first game was bad. But he did well the rest of the series.
Yes,
it was well the rest of the series.
Yeah, he turned it on, and honestly, in the Dallas series, now the dust is cleared, and I don't have to hear that god awful song anymore, and the Kelly Green is bleached from my eyes. I think he was probably the player of the series. And when the backs are against the wall, where we have every excuse in the world for Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen and well, if this, what, but Georgiev played great. And there was no little scuttlebutt around him or what should we do about? Nope. He was calm, cool, collected. Granted, there were games that the goal totals were up, but I mean, the team was falling apart and very just lifeless at this point. I feel like, honestly, and with his contract, he's got one more year before we have to start having contract talks about Georgiev. I say, come on back, Georgie.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that I think the contract plays a huge role in this because he's not costing you a lot of money, and I think the way the Avs look at this is, if we can get what we got out of him in the playoffs and lighten the load up a little bit for next year for him. And we've said it before, how Annunen looked good, but in a very small sample size. I think they really want to play that out for next year and give Annunen more of a look because it is Georgiev's last season. So why go trade him to bring in somebody maybe that costs a little bit more when right now every dollar counts? you have a guy who, hey, I mean, we can have the argument, but he led the league in wins. And sure, throw out the whole like, well, their offense kind of carried it. Okay, but he's a part of that, and he did. He led the league in wins. It wasn't great. It wasn't like Vesna like, but I think the Avalanche are in that position of we just need competent goaltending. And I feel like after that postseason, they're confident that they can get that from him and just ride what he did in the postseason and bring that into next year. And his confidence is going to be better. And we go back to we'll never know. We'll never know because the Avalanche will never tell us. But I just get the vibe that he was a stomach bug away from not playing in game 2 of Winnipeg. We'll never know, but that's kind of just how I'm feeling. And hey, he took that extra chance and he ran with it. He really did. He really turned things around instantaneously, and he had to. He couldn't do this. They did it during the regular season of trying to like get him just to play out of it. And I don't know if just the timing was right or if he just kind of flipped the switch and be like, dude, I have to be better now. Nah, I gotta turn this thing around today. And he really did.
Mhm.
So if the Avalanche are looking at it as like, hey, like we're getting him at a really good number for one more year. He ended the season very good. Let's carry that into next year. And maybe the third year with the Avalanche is when he puts it all together. Because the first year was good. First year was good. Second year was iffy. And give him that third year on his contract and see what he can do. And then you let Annunen spell him much more than he got spelled at all during the regular season and see what you have in Annunen at the same time. So I think this works out well for the Avalanche heading into next year. And you get behind a guy who just keeps, trying to give you his best effort. It's not always going to work out great, but I think what he showed you and me in the postseason was I'm kind of excited to see if he can continue that for next year and put it together for a full season finally.
Yeah, especially now that the Avs know what they're getting in Eustace, you could really commit to that 1A, 1B. Ride the hot hand, and if Georgiev needs a day off, sure. You need 2 days,
Yeah.
sure. You could really carry. Like, yes, he had the most wins last year. That's great. What did it get you? Nothing but a stat line and something to say after your name was announced on a broadcast. But so you could really just carry this out and balance the load, test Eustace a little bit more. And like we said, this is the last year on the contract. You're staring at a UFA year the following year, and players
So
usually
guys
step it up. Yeah.
Yes,
So
it is.
there's no wrong answer here. That's the Avs could commit to the 1A, 1B because you have more faith in your B, and you're getting Georgiev on a contract year where they usually play out of their minds. So please tell me where that's the wrong idea.
No, and I think with the Annunen angle is if he plays well too, and Georgiev gives you a great contract year, and let's say prices himself out of Colorado. Where have we seen that before with Avalanche goaltending? And they're confident with Annunen. Like that's around the time you want him to take it over. Because I still feel like they feel that way with him, that they want him to be their goalie for the future. But Annunen Georgiev could throw a wrench into that if he plays well. But maybe he doesn't because he's just not going to be affordable for them. But then you head in the year after next year and you're feeling good about the guy that you drafted finally stepping into that role. So I just feel like the Avs are in a good spot right now. Could that all implode? Absolutely. Absolutely. But we'll have to wait and see.
And you're only paying Eustace $837,000.
Yeah,
so I mean,
so again, if Georgiev does walk, you're starting goalie unless you bring somebody in, which if you feel like you need to, then you go and do that. If you're not fully confident that Annunen is ready to take it over in 2 years, or a year, however you want to say it, then you go out and get somebody. But if you don't, if you feel like he's your guy, your starting goalie is $800,000. You cannot beat that.
Nope.
So it's an interesting situation. I think the Avalanche are set up pretty nice, at least for next year, to see where it all goes. So,
and if they're not set up nice, they're still set up nice.
Yeah. They're always set up nice. Yeah. Come on now. All right. So we got a lot of questions to get to. Obviously, some Nichushkin ones and the captaincy. We'll play the what if game. We'll play the Marvel what if game, Avalanche version, and we'll do all of that coming up next. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we got a ton of questions. We're not going to get to every single one, but usually how we do this is, even though we can't get to all of them, there's a lot of questions that lead into other shows and other topics and segments and stuff like that. So if we don't get to your specific question, rest assured, we have a long off season and there's a lot of topics that we need to cover. So we'll start with Vargar. Why don't I start with Vargar, our man, Vargar? So I kind of knew he was going to ask something Val Nichushkin related, and he did. He said, despite what he means to the team, no argument that Nichushkin's issues helped derail the Avs the last 2 playoff drives. Do you trust him to somehow put that behind him, or do you trade him? So this is a trust issue. He's gone through this 3 times now, and if the Avs were to welcome him back, are you in that camp? Are you in the, hey, he's wearing our jersey, he's wearing our colors, I am going to back him and support him? Or are you in the, I think we need to, cut bait and run, and it's time to move on from him camp?
To answer Vargar's question, do I trust him? No. Do I trade him? What do you do?
Because if you don't trust him, what other team is going to trust him? If you start shopping him around and be like, hey, we're Nichushkin's up for a trade. Well, why are you trading him? Well, because he's had a rough history in the last 2 playoff runs for us. Oh, then why would we want him? You know what I mean? It's a tough sell. It's a tough sell right now. And Vargar asked, he said, do you think the Avs retain money? That always helps. But I think in this aspect, I don't know if it does. He says if the Avs retain $1 million or $2 million per season on Val, that there would be takers on the trade market. I think must-win teams like Toronto or Carolina would definitely take a chance. And that's what it's going to be. Like teams like that you're not taking the chance anymore. They are. If someone wants to inherit him. And it's going to be a team like that. I think he's right. It's not going to be a team that's, not doing anything. Maybe say that out loud. Maybe, you never know. But I do feel like teams that are just looking to get over that hump, that playoff hump. And those are 2 good teams that he brings up in Toronto and Carolina. Do they take that risk? Because the other part of the risk now is if he does it again, it's a year. And you own the year now if the Avalanche get rid of him. Whoever inherits him owns that year. So do they want to start out on that foot where if he has a slip up, that team doesn't have him for a full year? It is a bad situation that the Avalanche are in right now. And that's why I kind of feel like they just welcome him back. They welcome him back and try to make it work. Unless a team says, sure, we'll take that chance. Then you go look at that. But I just don't feel like a team is out there that's willing to do that chance.
And see, that's the thing. Like, I don't trust him. I feel like the Avs will have to. And if not, you tried. Because, and I don't think he's going to go to a contender. I think it'd be the other way around. I think a team like San Jose or Chicago would say, sure, this will help. And honestly, it's not going to kill us because this contract
screws up. What's it hurt?
What's it ruining our season? We got enough cap and we can make it. We can absorb it because if he does turn everything around and contributes, it's a huge win for this lower bottom team like Anaheim or San Jose or Chicago. But if like contracts like Toronto, Carolina, the cap is tight for those teams and you don't want to be there for a year suspension and have to deal with the Avalanche are currently dealing with.
It's rough. And you know what's going to happen, man. You know how we always kind of joke about Vegas and Stone around February. You know what's
Yeah.
the next injury for Mark Stone and LTIR or Toronto in the playoffs? You know, another year that Toronto's not going to, or they're eliminated. The Avalanche version of that now is it's playoff time. Is Val Nichushkin going to get suspended again? Because you've done it 2 years in a row. Now that's, I don't want to say it's the expectation, but people are going to be looking at that. People are going to be watching your team and like, hey, how are the Avalanche doing? Well, okay, is Val Nichushkin ready to slip up again? It's not where
Which
you want to
does,
be as a
and
team. It's not where you want to be as a team. It's not where you want to be as a player.
it doesn't help the situation at all.
No, definitely not. So, again, that is the number one thing that is going to be watched for this offseason for the Avalanche. And we'll just have to ride along with it and see where it goes. I'm sure they're exploring a lot of options. And, you know, we're going to have to get a decision that, you know, the next season is happening whether we want it to or not. And it's not whether or not for him as well. So we'll see where it goes. Easton, or let's step away from Avalanche world for just a hot second. And Easton asks, which team do you not want to win of the 4 remaining teams? It's easy for me. Like I really wouldn't want to see the Stars win, not because they eliminated you. It's your division foe, it's your division rival, and you know obviously everydayers know like East Coast team is the Rangers, so I'm rooting for them. If Florida got in, wouldn't care. That's fine. And if Edmonton got in, like I am in the camp of like I'm okay with that, dude. That is good for the league. Connor McDavid getting into the Stanley Cup final is good for the league. I'm all for it. Connor McDavid needs to win a Stanley Cup. He really does. Why no? Tell me why not?
Because I know we stepped away from the Avalanche, but if Connor McDavid wins the Stanley Cup, then the balance of power shifts back to Connor McDavid in the Nathan MacKinnon talks, because Nathan MacKinnon, he still has that little, it's
always going to be there, dude. Go ahead.
But
Go ahead.
I can't cheer for McDavid to get a cup, because honestly, I enjoy watching Edmonton try and fail, and then that team, you know, just losing parts and adding parts. I like watching that going on. I don't want to see Duchesne win a cup. So both teams in the West, you are not going to get me to cheer for. But number one, it's going to be, I know it's going to be great for the league, but I'm not here to grow the league. I'm here to watch the Avalanche win cups. And I don't want to see McDavid do it, because then there's a huge power shift in the West, and I'm not here for it.
There's really not, though, man. I know you probably feel that way, but McDavid has all the power. He really does. And McKinnon had a great season, and I feel like he's going to win the Hart Trophy. But it doesn't take away like Connor McDavid is the Patrick Mahomes of the NHL. And yeah, other guys will have great seasons and they should get like noticed for that. But as far as like a balance and difference, like it's always leaning towards him. Maybe a lean towards Edmonton as a whole, but I don't mind when superstars, if they're likable, I'll say that, if they're likable. And I don't think McDavid he's not you don't dislike McDavid, but he doesn't have that attitude of like, you know, just outgoing. Like he's very like monotone, and he's not that type of guy that's like out there and like the PK Subban type of guy. Like he's not that. And I'm okay with that, but he's not an idiot and he's not a jerk, at least. So I don't mind rooting for him. I know maybe that's sacrilegious to say that when you're, you know, the guy on the team that we root for. We want to be like number one in the power rankings and stuff like that. And for this year, he was. TSN put Nathan MacKinnon above him. That's good. Like that's all right. We'll take that. But it's Connor McDavid. It is. So I say like I think it's good for the league. I'm also the guy that like, again, I root for Toronto. I'd love to see Toronto get into the Stanley Cup final. That would be fantastic for the league. And this league needs eyeballs. They do. So I think it's a good thing. I don't want Dallas to go, clearly. So I'm all for Edmonton and more Rangers than Florida. But I think if it's Edmonton and whoever, if it's Edmonton and Rangers, that's going to get viewers. Edmonton with Connor McDavid and an original 6 team, that's viewership right there. So that's kind of what I'm rooting for.
I want Rangers Stars, and I want the Rangers to win it all because the NHL is so much better when the Rangers are good.
But the fact that you would go for the Stars because you dislike, you don't want that quote power shift to go to the McDavid side. You'd rather the Stars is wow.
I want the
I would be
chaos
shocked.
because if he can't do it this year in Edmonton, his contract's coming up. There was that talk of him going to the Kings. Like, you want to see that for the league because I think the league will be healthier if he goes somewhere else. And honestly, I don't know what kind of guy Connor McDavid is because he hasn't showed up for an Avalanche game in like 2 years. So
that's our defense, baby. Really show up when they play Edmonton, apparently. Let's do one more for our next break. Matt says, if Landy does not return, I don't know if that means for like a third year or just, I mean, you got to feel like if he doesn't return for a third year, does he hang him up? Who knows? Who knows? But he says if he doesn't return, let's just say he retires. Who's the front runner to wear the C? An on-ice leader is needed. This question has come in many times over the past couple of years, and the Avalanche have said, like, while he is still their captain and I air quotes, active player, nobody else is going to wear the C, which is fine. I'm fine with that. But let's just, worst case scenario, he's got to hang him up. Is there anybody on this team right now that you would give the captaincy?
Devontae's.
Somebody else asked that, said, what would you feel about Taves being the captain?
No brainer.
I'm not against it. But even like having a captain on your team is not like mandatory. You don't have to have a captain, by the way.
We haven't.
And I kind of feel like the Avalanche maybe would go that route for maybe a year or so. And I wouldn't be against Taves, but I just feel like when you have players like Nathan MacKinnon on your team that are, the otherworldly players, they tend to get the C. And people feel like he's not a leader. I don't know where that comes from. He does it differently, and that's part of it. Like Gabe Landeskog is the perfect captain because he's a captain on and off the ice. Nathan MacKinnon lives on the ice. I don't think Nathan MacKinnon like has a life outside of that. I'm kidding, but like his life is hockey. Where Gabe Landeskog's, yeah, it's hockey, but I always go back to when we had Katie Gauss on the show, and she said Landeskog demands like off ice like excellence from the guys. Like he doesn't stand for that. Where I feel like Nathan MacKinnon, like once the game is over and they leave the locker room, I kind of feel like Nathan MacKinnon would be like, all right, guys, go live your life. I'm not like babysitting you. Where Landeskog kind of is in a strange way. So, but on the ice, Nathan MacKinnon is a leader, folks. He does it differently, but he's more demanding. He's more demanding. He calls guys out. Like he is what you would want in a leader and definitely in a captain.
I don't think I agree. We've had 2 years. We've had 2 years without a C. I know it's because of respect to Landeskog.
Right.
He's had every opportunity to take that step up. And like,
you don't think he did this year?
Nathan MacKinnon plays to excel at the game. I don't think it has to do with the level of his teammates. I don't think he has that gene of like keeping everybody else accountable. Like he gets frustrated, visibly frustrated, like a child, and that's just that's Nathan MacKinnon. No, that's not what you like. Taves feels like a sergeant to Landeskog's style of accountability and calling people out and his hockey IQ. Nathan MacKinnon feels like he's going to go out there and win it by all by himself, or if they lose, he's frustrated with everybody. There's no like rising everybody through Nathan MacKinnon. It's because of Nathan MacKinnon.
I've never seen him really call out players like his teammates, though. Like he takes it all. Like it's all on him if a team doesn't play well. I've never really seen him say like, this guy was terrible. Like, and Taves has done that. Taves did that this year. where he was like, guys are thinking that they're playing better than they are, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's bad. So it is different. They would handle it differently. I don't have any problem with either side of how they would handle it. And I think Taves would be a good one. But I just think the stature of like Nathan McKinnon, that comes into play. I just feel like your Sidney Crosby's, your Connor McDavid's, like guys like that, they typically have that C on them because they are the upper echelon of the entire league. And those guys kind of get the C.
Well, just to finish it out, like if you look at Bednar coming on and off the ice of every game, Taves is right there. When it's on the ice in practice, it's Taves right there. Like Nathan McKinnon is not somebody you can lead, and I don't know if he can lead himself. I just feel like his talent is enough, and I feel like if you put a C on him, it might bring him down a little bit. Just let Nathan do what he does, and I would don't make him be a leader. Don't make him alter his game. Just let him do what he does and give that to somebody else.
I can see that. I don't think it would bring his game down, but I can see like, letting him do what he does. Don't give him the added pressure of wearing the C. I could see that, but I don't think like it would drag his game down. I think it would even raise it even more because that's a lot on your shoulders to be a captain of a team in the National Hockey League. And I think you would wear it as a badge of honor and do it the right way. But it would just be different. It'd be different how he did it compared to how they're used to Gabe Landeskog doing it, which is more of like a fatherly figure, but where McKinnon would be the Bobby Knight, I guess. Just throwing sticks and stuff.
That's gone well. That's gone super well.
So, but we'll see what happens when and if we don't want to completely just throw out like Gabe Landeskog because he's not coming back. We got a lot of questions on that. Do we feel that he is? I do. I mean, they're going to give him a shot. So we don't really have to deal with this, at least I think for another year, minimally. So,
but we've been asking this question for 2 years, going on 3.
I know. All right. Let's get to a couple more. We're going to get our last break in and then trade bait. Is there anybody in the Avalanche that is in that category? All right, so answering some listener questions for today's episode. Colin, hey,
good name.
Says, who would be the most likely trade candidate on the current Avs roster to make cap room? We brought it up on, I think, yesterday's episode. It's tough. Like, I don't feel like the Avalanche really need to, if they make any trades, I don't think it's going to be a bigger name to make cap space. And I do want to make a correction. I wanted to do this at the beginning when we were talking about the cap friendly stuff yesterday. And somebody mentioned it in the YouTube comments, and I wish I had their name in front of me. I'm sorry, but you know who you are. When I was looking at the cap friendly stuff, just because Gabe Landeskog's been on LTIR for the last 2 years, I thought he was still in that category. But they have moved him from that to just injured reserve. So that 15 or just shy of $16 million is including his $7 million. It is not discounting his $7 million. So it gives you a little bit more freedom in your cap maneuverability. But what I did with making the roster, that still holds true because you're bringing his, regardless, even if he was on LTIR, I put him into that roster and his number was counting against that mythical cap that I was doing anyway. But I wasn't even looking. I was just assuming because he's right there with Logan O'Connor. And I just assumed both of those guys were on LTIR. But after their season is over, they removed them because there's no LTIR right now. They could put them back on there if they need to when the season starts. But thank you for pointing that out because I looked at cap friendly over and over and over again, and I was just glossing right over that. So thank you. But if they do need to make cap space, do you think that there's anybody that could be a casualty for cap room?
When it comes to this season, you laid it out really well yesterday in the last segment about what the Avs could do when it comes to youth. So I don't know if the need for cap space going into the season is going to be that big of an issue other than just managing these contracts and the free agents that are coming up. I don't think you're going to be making cap room to bring in some big name. I don't think that's where the Avalanche are looking right now. But there are some names that are on this roster that are interesting if this team goes under 500 going into January. That's going to have to be one of those that things do have to move around because it's not getting better and something's not right. And if you have to make those big moves in the crunch, there are some names you might move, but I don't think you'll see one of those trades before the season.
I think that's a good way to look at it. I think it's going to be a very light offseason for the Avs in terms of who they're signing for free. I mean, right? It's all depth guys.
Mm-hmm.
All the guys that are unrestricted free agents are depth guys. So you have the money to do, with the exception of Middlestat, who's a restricted, and Jonathan Drouin. Those are your two big guys. I mean, you can maybe throw Sean Walker in there, who might get a little bit of an increase. We did have someone ask about that. Do we think like the Avs are the front runner to sign Walker? I wouldn't say that they're the front runner, only because I think he's going to want to try to cash in as much as he can. But on the other flip side of that, the Avs fit his game perfectly. So he can either go maybe chase a little bit more money or play in a system that plays to his style and maybe make a little bit less. Be interesting to see what decision he makes there. But I think you're right. I think this offseason, when it comes to signing guys, is gonna kind of be, I don't want to say boring, but it's those depth guys that you need to fill those roster spots. That's where teams are made. But the big names and the big fish are just not on the Avs radar. Number one, because they don't need them. You have your big fish signed, and you just need to fill in the spots. So I think you're right. I think they use their youth. They sign veteran depth guys, see how the season goes, and then, like they do every year, address holes around the trade deadline. This is how it's been for the Avalanche for however many years, and it seems to be working. They're winning regular season. Yeah, they want to win another cup. That'd be great, but they did win a cup too, by the way. So I think it's working okay.
Yep. I just don't feel like this is the year where you're going out and you're looking for number one free agent, especially like towards trade deadline. You're in the running. I don't feel like they're going out looking for the big fish when you have a top six like they do, and honestly the top four for defense, and you have a good goalie tandem. So I don't feel like you really need the big names. It's just the depth, and you're not going to be trading away the players you do have signed to make that happen.
If you're gonna like hold my feet to the fire as I pick a name, they need cap space. Who they're gonna get rid of? Again, this is not a guy that I would want to. I'd say Josh Manson. Not that I would want to. Not that I would want to.
That's one of the two names I had. It was Josh Manson or Miles Wood.
You know what, Miles Wood, like he's not going to save you a ton of money, like $2.5 million, but whoever would get him would get term.
Yep.
And people, we got a lot of questions on trading Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen is not getting traded. You do not trade guys of his value to this team almost ever, because he had an iffy postseason. Come on, people. He is one of your best players, and if you want to rank the players in the league, he's top 10, top 15 at the worst, top 15. I understand the frustration, but my God, like the whole "what have you done for me lately" is killing Mikko Rantanen right now, and people for some reason want to get rid of him. I don't understand why it's always the replacement solves the problems. Trade Mikko Rantanen for what? Oh, I don't know. But whatever we get in is going to be better than him. Get rid of Alexandar Georgiev. Let Justus Eonen play. Because why? Because he has how many games experience? But he's going to solve the problem. Everything is whatever. What Sam Malinsky. Whatever is the replacement, people think just solves everything. And the fact that they want to move on from Mikko Rantanen just makes my head explode. He's a phenomenal player. Did he have the greatest postseason? No, but it wasn't as bad as everybody wants to make it out to be. I think because he's so good and the expectations are what they are, and he didn't live up to those expectations in the postseason, we want to dump him? Come on, people. We got to be smarter than this. It's not going to happen.
I'm not thrilled with his play in the postseason.
No,
but with everything that's going on in Avalanche land, I am definitely going to be keeping my eye on him in the next season. It's
then you're going to be
honestly,
straining your eyes.
I get it.
Not happening.
No, I get what you're saying, but the level of coasts and just the body language, I'm trying to wait and see if something breaks about injuries or what's going on, because it's visually, when your team needed you. This is why you weren't included in the conversation when it comes to captain. It's alarming a little bit, and you want to see just a little bit more. And I would like to see a rebound or just some kind of explanation, but it's not great.
If Chris McFarland he hasn't spoke yet. Like I don't know if it's scheduled but it's probably going to be soon when he speaks to the media. If he comes out and says, yeah, he's dealing with something and he's having some minor surgery or something like that, does that satisfy you as to why he wasn't playing up to the expectation that we expect him to?
It's for what he did in the regular season, and to play as poorly and as lifeless as he did, like we talked about yesterday, with the games of 1 goal and just 3 and 4 being so lifeless and just lethargic. You need to step up, because that's a big contract that's sitting on this team for you to have just that kind of effort when your team needs you. I can understand calling into question trading away to solve things. I don't know if that's possible, because he was for a while top 10 in points. So let's cool that, but it is perfectly justified and understandable to say, hey, your playoff performance was putrid.
Sure.
What's going on?
Say that. Say, hey, I expected more from you. Don't say trade him. Like, have you just completely forgotten everything that this guy has done for this team? Remember the injury riddled season? Who was the one constant during that season? Mikko Rantanen. And there's been times where he's started seasons hot, and even though this is like crazy, like to talk about like MVPs any time before when the calendar changes. But there's been times where he's had incredible starts to the season, and people are saying like putting him in that Hart Trophy conversation. He's a great player. And the Avalanche are lucky to have him. And I can almost guarantee you, if you got what you wanted, not you, just the people who want him traded, you will regret that. You will regret it. If it were to happen, whatever the return is, won't be what Mikko Rantanen gives you for this team. Not the postseason, I get, but fine.
Let me offer Avalanche fans this. This is a brochure to this land that I like to call the middle ground. You don't have to go to both extremes. Both can be right. And right now, you can call out the playoff performance, but also look back at everything he's done. There is a middle ground, but you don't have to jump to extremes just yet.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's get to 2 more. Brandon says, will McKinnon or Makar ever get a cup with the Avs again? Look, people, like, yes. I shouldn't say yes just as like it's so easy. But I say, like, I'm pretty confident that they can, because how I answered him was, Nathan McKinnon's 28. Cale Makar is 25. They have a long way to go for their hockey careers. And I think the odds are in their favor, playing for this team, that they will win another one. You would think Nathan McKinnon has another 10 years minimally. Of course, barring injury and all that stuff. And Cale Makar's career is really just getting started. He's got another 14 years, maybe. Sure. I will take those odds any day that they can win one, maybe not multiple, by the time their careers are over.
If you would have asked me in 23, I would have said absolutely. If you would have asked me after I would say right now there's about 70% chance that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, things change year to year, obviously, but when you have these 2 guys on the same team, chances are good. So, And finally, we started with Vargar. Why not end with Vargar as well? Completely not hockey related whatsoever. Guys, what color are your lightsabers? And can you guess the color of Vargar's lightsaber? Knowing Vargar, and he's a tattoo artist, I know that he is, and I've seen like the art that he's done. He's a Sith Lord. He's going red all day.
He would be
right?
okay.
And we've met him. Very nice guy. I mean, I don't think if he's a Sith Lord, he's hiding it Palpatine style. But I feel like he's yeah.
Darth
Vargar. That has a nice ring to it. Darth Vargar.
Vargar. I want to say like Darth Vargar is much like myself. He might have been rocking a green one, but up until I saw the dark saber on my screen, that changed my life. And I am rocking the dark saber, and I think Vargar might as well.
I do have a lightsaber that I made when I went to Disney 5 years ago. And I made it. It had the red Sith kyber crystal, but I went and I have it right here. I'm like, because you can change them. You can change them out if you want to. And I needed a Force one, so I went green. There's the green kyber crystal because Yoda's my boy, and I got to go with green. So I play both sides. Sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with that. I'm the gray Jedi, as they say. I'm in between. So
no, they don't call me Von Doom for nothing. I am a Sith through and through.
All right. So that is going to wrap it up. How you can't really beat kyber crystals and lightsabers. So I think we should just wrap this bad boy up for now. So all right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Like I said, we have a ton of other questions. Maybe we'll spill those over in tomorrow's episode and a lot more to talk about. And we will start our grading tomorrow. So follow us on social media. We put up polls on Twitter, on YouTube. We do. I don't know if they do it on Threads. That's a new one for us. So just follow us on social media and take part in that. So we'll start that tomorrow. We always do it alphabetically. So yeah. All right. It'll be fun. That'll wrap it up. Thank you for tuning in, making your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.